Yo, good morning, everybody. The sun is shining, the stocks are soaring-ish, but I'm Curtis back with another video. Before I start, I have to do it. I absolutely have to do it. I'm sorry, I've got to do it. I am so close to hitting my goal of 100 subscribers by the end of this week. So if you're watching this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please hit that subscribe button right now. Right now. You done that? Well, Infinite Investors is effectively a new channel that's geared towards giving investment information about the stock market to new and budding investors. The whole ethos, the whole purpose of the channel is to create investment videos in a clear, simple, transparent, very easy to understand way for any sort of new investor or anyone that hasn't even made that leap into getting into the stock market, so that they can, get information in an easy to understand way and hopefully make that leap towards financial freedom. So the types of videos you'll see on the platform are my portfolio updates. It might be stock market news about any specific, stock or something that's trending. It could be, a question and something that's worth debating, something that you might, want to discuss. And so there'll be more of those to come as well. And there's also explainer videos, animated videos about a whole different aspects of the stock market. So please help me get to 100 subscribers. I think I will get to 100 subscribers by the end of this week. And then I can launch my new goal of 250 subscribers by the end of next week. Now that's a big ask. It's a very big ask. It's a very big task. But that's why I feel like today, right now, is the time for me to drop what I consider is the most important investment video that I will ever make. And because I think it's that important, hopefully it will get this channel on its way to 250 subscribers by the end of next week. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how I identify stocks, how I shortlist stocks, how I then select them. You guys already know how and where I buy them using the Freetrade platform, so I'm not going to go into detail on that element of the process. But then once I've bought a stock, I'm going to show you how I manage my portfolio, understanding what's going up, what's going down, and what the overall picture, the overall flavor looks like. And also how I manage, my dividends, so I understand if I should invest more to try and get a better return on my dividends. So it's going to be the whole journey from selecting stocks through to purchasing, managing, updating, evaluating, and also then, looking at dividends and performance. Now, I want to be crystal clear from the outset. This is just my personal approach. Please don't consider this as advice or any sort of validation that this is the best or optimal approach in terms of selecting, identifying stocks. I think the main bit of advice I can give you is Dior. And no, I'm not talking about Christian Dior. I'm talking about Dior with the Y, and that's do your own research. It's so important that you do your own research. I will be wrong. And so, you guys earned your hard-earned money, and you guys need to manage, the best way that you want to sort of spend. I'm just going to share with you what I do. Hopefully you find some value in that. And if you want to tweak some bits to fit, your style and your lifestyle and your sort of philosophies, then that's perfectly fine. But do not consider this as advice in any way, shape or form. But anyway, we've got heaps of stuff to cover off in this video, so I think we should really just get started. So let's go. This is my Google sheet. Now it doesn't look like anything now, but you're gonna see. So at the moment what you can see is all of the stocks that I currently hold here on the side in green. You can see whether they're UK or US and what industry they hold. The status at the moment is holding, but I will show you some other statuses. What I do towards the end of each month with the ones that I hold is then I update what the current price is and I update what the future share price is, and I'll tell you where I get that information from. I've then got formulas that then tell me what the potential share price growth is in the next 1 to 3 year period. I update the PEG ratio. I update their earnings and performance forecasts from analysts. Again, I'll show you where I get that information from. I update what their next tax year dividend is likely to be. I sort of add some comments for myself, and then I've got a whole heap of information about how I do my dividend calculations, etc., which I'll get onto later in this video. I've got a whole bunch of stuff in this from my own personal sort of budget planner, anything to do with businesses, you know, things I want to see in Freetrade. If there's information to do with stocks that I want to sort of just understand what they mean, I sort of track it here. And you know, stuff I want to do in YouTube and the types of videos I want to share with you guys. But right now, this video is about how I sort of manage my portfolio. So if I change the status, I've also got blanks and pending, which I'm going to just do that right now. Now, this behemoth is effectively every single stock that is sitting on the Freetrade platform. Now, obviously, there are, you know, I think maybe 89,000 stocks worldwide. There's 333 here because I'm using Freetrade. Freetrade is my go-to platform for long-term investing. I agree with its values. I agree with, you know, what Freetrade is trying to achieve within the UK, and I want to be a part of that journey. So there are going to be stocks that won't be listed here because Freetrade currently don't hold them. Obviously, they could be great value stocks as well, but I'm only specifically going to talk about the ones that Freetrade currently hold. So what do? Well, I have every single stock listed here, as I mentioned, from UK, US, and also any ETFs that are also listed, and what, you know, industry that they're involved in, etc. And then when I'm looking to add new stocks, I then take the opportunity to update the current price and update the future price. I don't do this every day, every month. It will be way too cumbersome. I've done this process twice in the last 4 months. When I first joined Freetrade, and the last month when I decided to add the 3 new stocks that you guys saw in the last video, being Verizon, First Solar, and Vodafone. So if I'm in the mood that I feel like I'm going to potentially sell a stock and I want to sort of add a new one, then I will take this exercise. But current run rate, I probably will do this exercise once per quarter, just because it can be quite long. And the more stocks Freetrade add, obviously the more time I'm potentially going to need. Now, for me, these are the pillars of information that are important to me personally. There are so much different pillars of information that you could look at, from price to book, you know, return on equity. There are so many different, you know, ratios, etc. But I've chosen the price, the future share price, which then I calculate a percentage growth. I've chosen the PEG ratio because I'm looking at price earnings in relation to growth. Their future revenue performance, because I'm a key believer that a company's revenues is a key indicators for growth, and that will then, you know, drive the share price irrespective of analyst opinions. And then also dividend percentage, because it's also, you know, really good to try and scoop up some dividends or scoop up a little bit of profit on the journey. So when I've sort of got a list of all, I update this, and then I filter it by, you know, here it is filtered. I filtered it in another way actually because of, you know, the current ones that I'm holding, but here you can see potential share price growth could be one of the ways to filter it. So I can go Z to A, and it would show me actually which ones are the biggest potential share price growth. Now, Debenhams is listed just because it's extremely, you know, distressed at the moment, and obviously there's been talks of buyouts, etc., etc. And I'll tell you exactly where I get this information from. So when I sort of have a list of all of this, I then go over to this handy tool called Simply Wall Street. Now, Simply Wall Street is effectively a platform that helps me analyze stocks. It helps me manage my portfolio, and it helps me, you know, get access to fundamental data in a clear and easy way. Now, my values is keeping things clear and transparent. I'm not trying to be an economist. I'm not trying to be, you know, a Bloomberg analyst at some stage in the future. It really doesn't interest me. I just want the information to be clear in a way that I understand. and then hopefully I can share it in a way that you guys will understand. So if I take an example of a stock, now we can go, let's look at Overstock.com, because that was something that's in a pending status that I was currently looking at. So Overstock, I will literally just type that here, and it will then come up with, you know, where all of the different exchanges that Overstock is listed. Now I want the main one, which would be the NASDAQ for Overstock.com. And then it loads. So what you have is this sort of snowflake radius graph, and a sort of description which kind of tells you, you know, value, dividend, health, the past performance and the future performance. Gives you a bit of an update, tells you the market cap of the company, ticker, and it gives you a graph of the share price events, etc., etc. Then what I do, I scroll down to this first key indicator for me, and this tells me what the current share price is and what they're based off the value of the organization, what analysts expect the future share price to potentially be. If this goes towards the red, it means it's extremely undervalued. Sometimes you might see it in the complete inverse, where say 94 is at the bottom and 16 is at the top, and then what that means is completely overvalued stock at the moment. That then kind of indicates the current discount. I told you my goal is around the 50% mark. I want to try and grow my portfolio by 50% in the next 3 years. It then gives you information on price to earnings growth, price based off assets. This one in the middle is my key indicator. Now, I don't get this information for every stock. So as you can see, with a whole bunch of stocks, you'll see the value of N, because sometimes that information just isn't available. It's not going to be the indicator that I make the sole decision on, but for me, it's a nice to have. I then look at what it discusses as their future performance. So it looks at a whole bunch of data and it makes estimates, again, in the next 1 to 3 years of their future performance. But this figure here is their annual growth. So this is what they expect their growth rate to be in the next year. And that I then copy over to this tab here, which is the future performance tab here effectively, and I put that. I've got a conditional formatting which basically, you know, just color codes based off the parameters that I'm sort of looking at, the criteria that I've got, what's green, what's red, what's orange, etc., etc. I then do look at all of this information because I do find it valuable. But the next sort of key indication, I look at past performance, which is not always an indicator of future performance. But then the next key one that I sort of update is where it gets to dividends. Now, Overstock doesn't pay a dividend, but what you would see here, if, for example, I change this to good old Aviva, so I'm going to go LSE, AV, that's going to give me Aviva right there. It will say, as an example, in the dividend section, that their annual dividend is 7.36, but estimated next year 8.34%. So in the column on my spreadsheet in dividend, I will then add what the dividend percentage potentially is going to be. So I go and do that for every single stock. What I used to do also is look at their insider trading. So for some stocks, you might have, like Barclays as a really big example, you will have loads of insider trading transaction and data because it's such a significant organization. So, you know, senior executives that are trading, as you can see, it shows so much insider transactions. And for me, I look at the dates, and that kind of indicates, you know, if people are buying, insiders within the organization are buying Barclays, that personally for me is a very, very clear indicator that they know something I don't, and they are believing and trusting in the organization, and they believe that the current share price is worth buying at, and you know it's going to grow at some stage in the future. So if they're buying, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't buy effectively, because they work within inside the organization. So that's something that's sort of important to me. Now I have another tab which is hidden between here. I'll just unhide it, which basically is the insider trading tab, but I'm just going to hide it, and that kind of is an indication of, is there a high or a low level of insider trading. But I didn't do it for the last round just because it can take quite some time, and I wanted to sort of save some time. So again, I'm going to sort of hide that column. I then sort of make some comments along the way if there's anything key that I need to follow up on. Now, once I've done that exercise, I then effectively whittle down anything that interests me into pending and in a pending status. So these were all shortlisted stocks along with Verizon, Vodafone and First Solar, of stocks that based off their potential share price growth, based off their PE ratio. Now you will see ones with high PE ratios. That doesn't necessarily, PEG ratio, sorry. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad organization, but sometimes it depends on the industry. But also it's about having a balanced view. So if I still see a good performance indicator and a good potential share price with a high PEG ratio, I might be buying at a higher price, but it just might mean that it's still going to grow. And then obviously the dividend information here. And then effectively, once I've got all of my pending stocks, I go over to good old Google. And what I do, so as an example, overstock.com. I will go to Google and I will be like, Overstock. As you can see, I've searched, so you know I'm talking facts. And then I'll go to this tab, news. Now, what I then try to do is literally read as many articles on overstock.com as I possibly can within the time frame that the day allows me to effectively do with all of the other stuff I've got going on. But I try and read between 5 to 10 articles on any of the pending items. I won't do it on every item, but I'll do it on the pending items. So one of the key things about overstock.com is that they're an e-commerce business in America, and effectively they've lost a considerable amount of money in the last quarter, but it was mainly due to, I think, a lawsuit that they had to sort of make a payout some employees for something that happened back in 2010, and it only sort of got done then. Now, one of their competitors, for example, is Wayfair. Wayfair is a sort of similar brand to Overstock.com. However, they've, I think, reported losses of $1 billion last year. So what the Overstock.com CEO has effectively said is that he's going to try and transition Overstock from not just a retail company, Patrick and Byrne is the founder, but to a blockchain company. Now, he's a complete blockchain enthusiast. He's got other ventures. He believes Overstock will turn a profit this year, but also he's going to be investing in his other ventures. So then I sort of take that information, and then I sort of, kind of give my sort of high level understanding of what effectively is going on there. And then, that helps me make a decision. Is it something I want to invest in now? Do I want to monitor the situation, etc., etc.? Once I've decided that actually, I've decided, I'm going to buy, it then goes into a holding status. Now, what I do, I go to the Freetrade application. I obviously find the stock. I obviously make my basic order, which will be executed at 4 p.m. Every single day. So I try and get it in before 4 p.m. And then obviously I've purchased and bought that stock, and then I make a video, I show you guys watch the video, you guys subscribe, you guys make me happy, I go to bed a happy man. But once that's done, that is effectively what I consider the first half of the journey. If you look at it like a football match, that is the first half. It then comes to the second half. Once you've got a stock in your portfolio, the job for me, again, this is my personal opinion, the job is only half done. You need to continuously monitor that stock and understand what is going on with that stock, how it's performing. So obviously you can make decisions whether you continue holding, whether you decide to sell, whether you buy more, etc., etc. So the first thing that I wanted to show you what I do is effectively how I manage my portfolio. So again, I go back to this wonderful tool called Simply Wall Street, and if I click on home, I already have a portfolio, as you can see, Infinite Investors active. When I click on that, this effectively is an overview of the current state of play with my whole Freetrade portfolio. It tells me what my percentage of capital gain return is, what dividends. Now, I'm actually expecting a dividend today, which is why it says £10, and I'm going to go into the dividend section. I'll cover that in a bit more detail. Because I've added American stocks, it tells me if there's any sort of currency gain by sort of advantages, I guess, from selling a stock with a different currency. And it just tells me my total return. And it's got all of my holdings that are currently here, bar one. One is missing. And I will add that one today and show you how I do that. It tells me my portfolio performance. Obviously, these big spikes are when I've decided to do my round of investing. But, you know, here I get a better sort of graphical picture of what's going on. It gives me a nice little pie chart, you know, what's green. So, you know, Taylor Wimpey, Imperial Brands is here. Barrett Developments has been doing consistently well. But what's not doing so well, you know, the Man Group and Sentiment, which is the stuff I've shared in my videos that are not doing so well. So this is a very, very clear indicator for me. It tells me how diverse my portfolio is. So you can see, obviously, the different stocks that I hold, but also diverse from an industry standpoint. So it kind of shows this is 100% of my portfolio, and it's made up of, you know, materials and metals and consumer durables and food and beverage and banking and insurance and telecommunication services. And then sometimes it gives you some helpful insight, like the banks industry makes up 30% of the total of my portfolio. So maybe I am a bit overexposed into banks, and if there is a recession, I could potentially be at a loss. So it then gives me that kind of understanding on whether or not I need to make a slight change to the portfolio. Then, based off the revenues and all of that information I showed you before, it tells me what the current market value. So this is kind of like, if I was Berkshire Hathaway, this is the current share price of Infinite Investor stock, is kind of the way to look at it, and what the future share price should be in a 1 to 3 year period. So effectively how much I hopefully will see the portfolio grow. It then gives me an aggregated view of value based off past earnings, aggregated view of PEG growth ratio, an aggregated view of value based on assets. It also gives me, you know, an indication of my future performance effectively. So again, if Infinite Investors was a business, and the business obviously is made up of all of the different stocks I hold, that's the performance I should be looking at this year. And then it gives me an indication of my debt to equity ratio, and also the dividends that I currently hold and what are the sort of highest dividend payers. And then news. So these are all news articles that are updated very recently, mainly from Simply Wall Street, but I've actually have seen some from, not from Simply Wall Street, I do need to double check that, about stocks that I currently hold, and then I can kind of monitor the situation. So for me, this makes me feel smart, because effectively it gives me all of the information that I deem valuable in order to understand and manage what is going on with my current portfolio. Now, as I mentioned, there is one stock missing in my current portfolio, which is First Solar. So I wanted to give you a live demonstration of how I effectively will update First Solar into the portfolio. So I click on this tab, edit portfolio, and here you can see all of the different individual transactions that I've made. Now, they made an update which I'm not a fan of. So at first it was in date order. Now they kind of, once you refresh it, they kind of bucket it in terms of the stock. Date order was more helpful, so then I could easily see when the next sort of ones I need to update based off date. But kind of now it's bucketed. However, you know, I've added Vodafone, so it's kind of clear for me. So all I do is I use a Mac, so I do Control, click, insert row below, and I'm going to go and type in FSLR, which is First Solar. Now, First Solar is on the NASDAQ, so you have to select the actual stock it's referring to. I then select the date I made the purchase, which I know was on the 27th. And then it's how many shares of First Solar did I buy? Well, this is going to be very simple because I only bought one share of First Solar. It then predicts the price that I bought at. But what I'm going to do is put the actual price that's in the market by contract note in Freetrade. Now, let me just double check. No, actually, I'm going to put the dollar price. So in Freetrade, in the market by contract note, it will tell you your price per share. That is normally the value I enter in this field. But because this is a US stock, and because I've got a blend of US and UK stocks, for the UK stocks I can do that. For the US stocks, is that I have to kind of put the dollar value. So it's simple for me because I've only bought one share. I go on the average price per share, which is again in the Freetrade product, the sort of detail page for that stock. So that was 50.45, which was the average price per share. And then I show buy was the transaction. Once that's done, I save it. Doesn't take too long. I then go back to my portfolio. You then have to refresh it. So I hit that refresh button and boom, you will now see First Solar. And it says I'm 4.2% in profit on First Solar. I go to the Freetrade application. Freetrade says I'm 4.33%. It's roughly right. Now, there will be some fractional differences between Simply Wall Street and Freetrade, simply because I always put the prices to about 4 decimal places. But I guess sometimes, so if you saw in the edit tab, and I probably should have explained this, so apologies. In the cost, once I put the price in the shares, it kind of gives me a cost. Now that cost doesn't always match the actual cost in Freetrade, and I think that's something to do with both stamp duty and also I think the way it kind of calculates the share prices for that day. So for whatever reason, the cost is often fractionally different, and it's usually decimals of places, not sort of whole numbers different, but that will kind of get a little bit of disparity. But in terms of the overall sentiment, it's completely correct, to be honest. So that is now First Solar added to the portfolio. As you can see, it's added here somewhere. For First Solar's there, 4.2, added to the diversification. It's all updated and everything. Now you might not see that much of a change because there's only obviously just one share, but I wanted to sort of give you that, clear update of, what is effectively going on there. Now, the third part of this video is then looking at dividends. So obviously a lot of you guys are dividend investors, which I've sort of grown in my knowledge of how important being a dividend investor actually is. I was first of all primarily focused on growth, but with dividend payers I then sort of have this tab. So I'm going to put it in order, and this is going to be in A to Z. So now I've changed I've sorted the order to A to Z, which is effectively the ex-dividend date. So what you can see here is what I effectively do is all of the dates that have passed, the ex-dividend dates, are in red. So, I can invest in those organizations, but in terms of the next dividend payment, I will not get any payment for those dividends. I then have all of the ones in green, means it gives me the opportunity at some stage to still invest and then hopefully increase the dividend payment that I am receiving. So I've got the ex-dividend date, which is the date you need to have your funds invested by to be counted for the dividend payment, and then I've got the actual payment date that has been declared for my dividends. So as you can see, the one that's in black is the 29th. Today is the 29th, and that is Imperial Brands, and I am expecting a dividend payment from Imperial Brands, and that dividend payment should be around the £5.91 mark. But as you can see, I'm also expecting on the 4th of April is my next dividend payment, which will be Barclays. I can't invest any more into Barclays to affect that dividend payment, but it's in green on the payment date because, again, the payment date hasn't yet arrived. However, everything from this downwards is effectively all of the stocks that both their ex-dividend date and payment date have yet to come, which means I can still add money that will affect the dividend price. So what I effectively do is I add the number of shares that's going to be counted in the dividend, what the share price is, what the total value, the dividend per share, what my dividend payment and a dividend percentage. Now, a lot of this, as you can see in this are formulas that I've sort of preset. But what is an easy tool to be able to do that is this wonderful tool here called Dividend Max. Now, it's a little bit difficult sometimes when you're on the site. So what I do, I then go to I just Google it again. So for example, let's take Aviva and I'll write Aviva dividends into Google. And as you can see, the second link, and it's usually the first or second, very, very trusted website, which is why it's highly ranked. I then click on Aviva dividends from Dividend Max, and it's got a great calculator. So what that effectively will tell me is how many Aviva shares have you got. Now Aviva is row 84. So if I scroll over here, I've got currently 214 shares of Aviva. Now I've got more shares of the ones up here, but I've only put the shares that are before the ex-dividend date. It's very important. I don't put my current holding. I've got Simply Wall Street for that. I put the shares that I've got at the point of this current ex-dividend date. Once this ex-dividend date surpasses with Aviva, as an example, and I then buy, say, on the 12th of April, I won't add the 12th of April shares onto here just because they won't be beneficial for this dividend payment, but I will do it once I then look at the next stage. So I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do that. But as you can see, 214 shares I've got, so I just put into this calculator 214, calculate payment, and it'll tell me my next dividend payment on Thursday the 30th of May 2019, declared final dividend will be £44.41. But obviously, because the ex-dividend date hasn't passed, I can still continue to add to that. Now that's £44.41, and as you can see, £44, and I've obviously done it to 3 decimal places, but it will be £44.41 because you can't get 0.05 of a penny in the UK. Not that I would ever want you to either, but yeah, I've rounded it. I need to sort of round that down to actual tangible figures effectively. Now that just shows that my formula is correct. Now in a previous video I put the formula in the description, but effectively, as I mentioned, I put the number of shares, I put what the current share price just to get me, then I times these two figures just to get me the value of my current portfolio. The dividend price per share is information I get from here. So what you can see is that Aviva will be paying 20.75p per share that you currently hold. So I then will go 0.2075. It's very important that you don't put 20.75 because that means they'll be paying £20, 75p per share. It's done because it's under £1, it's 0.2075 per share. And then in this, the dividend payment is effectively, column U, so dividend price per share, times column R, which is the number of shares that you hold, and that will effectively line up with what you see on Dividend Max. And then I calculate the dividend percentage by effectively dividing this figure by dividing the total value, which is the reason why I want the value there, and then timesing it by 100, which gives me the percentage dividend return effectively, and that's the percentage that I quote to you guys. I then tally it all up. So currently I'm expecting from the next set of dividends all the way up until sort of 6th of June, £175 in dividend payments, which totals roughly 2.72% of the value of those stocks at that time. And obviously if I add more, then I completely continue to update this, and that figure effectively also gets updated. And that is effectively how I select stocks, how I identify and do my research on stocks, how I then shortlist the ones I'm interested in, how I purchase stocks, how I manage that portfolio in Simply Wall Street, and then obviously how I manage what's going on with my dividends, etc. Now I will put my referral link in the description for Simply Wall Street. If you want to join Simply Wall Street, I believe it's a free trial for 30 days, and then I believe, please forgive me if I'm wrong, it's about £80 for the year if you want to buy an annual subscription. I personally see the value in it. £80 a year is about what, £6 a month, £6.50 a month. For me, it's quite valuable just to get the level of insight in a very clear, consolidated, easy fashion. I think it's a great tool. And considering that I don't pay for any of my purchases on Freetrade, you know, some people are paying £12 for, you know, for buys and sells with different stock providers. For me, I'm using that money to kind of give me, you know, the upfront information and hopefully make better investment decisions. So click on my referral link. It will be in the description, and you can join Freetrade. You might get a discount, I think, but I don't even remember what it actually said. I just put the link there, to be honest. And guys, you know, this is obviously the longest video I've ever done today. Currently, what's 35 minutes. You know, I appreciate you guys taking the time out to actually watch this video. I really, really do hope this was useful for you. If you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up. Please share the video. Please subscribe. Please share with any of your friends at college, university, your workmates, anyone that you think would be interested in investing and wants, you know, to understand how to get into the stock market in a clear, simple, and easy, concise way. I think Infinite Investors is the home for that. You know, I really believe in the videos that I'm creating. You know, my vision is to always be clear, always to be transparent, always to be honest. You'll never get any sort of fake news just for the sake of a few clicks, just for the sake of a few likes. It's not something that I sort of subscribe to from a morality standpoint. So I'll always try and be honest. If I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. If I'm right, hopefully I'm right more than I'm wrong. I'll always tell you that this is my opinion and that I'm not forcing or advising you to always do this, but hopefully it's an opinion that gives you more insight than you otherwise would have had, so you can kind of make investment decisions for yourself. But hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please leave me a comment. I really, really want the feedback. I really will appreciate the feedback. And it helps other users on YouTube, if they stumble across this video, to also see how other people have benefited from this video. So it was a long one, but I hope it was a valuable one. Leave a comment, leave a like, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. Share it with your friends. If you've got any questions, any messages, don't hesitate to leave a comment or message me on any of the social media platforms, and I promise to respond as soon as I can. If I don't know something, I'll let you know. If I do, I'll give you, you know, the best information I possibly can at that time. And I wish you all the best with your portfolios. I wish you all of the success. Hopefully you guys achieve the goals that you set out to achieve. And last but not least, as I always say, happy investing. Take care, guys.